I'm here with Nazli, Bettina, and Kyle. Taking good care of a product is instrumental in achieving product longevity. But how do we get consumers to actively care for and repair their products? What does it take to empower them? Kyle presents his views on the importance of the right to repair. It's yours.
Well, this is such an important topic, and really excited to be given this venue to chat about it. I run iFixit. We're an online repair guide, and my mission is to teach everybody in the world how to fix their things. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about what some of the challenges are with repairing things, and then later we'll have a conversation about, like, even if you can fix things, do people want to? How do we get consumers excited about fixing their own things? For me, I'm a technologist. I like gadgets. So this is a VR. If you're not familiar, this is HTC's VR headset, and then this is the controller. And I'm always fascinated with all of these new things. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this feels like something out of Stargate. If you ever watched that show,
it is.
Yeah, ancient Egyptian technology. That is. Yeah, it looks kind of like an alien contraption. So I'm always looking at interesting new gadgets that come out and saying, okay, well, where is the world going? What are the types of products that we're going to have? And then I don't like to be a naysayer and say we don't want new technology, we don't want new products. Like, technology makes the world better. Telecommunications has brought people together in ways that we could have never imagined. It enriches lives. People's quality of life in most parts of the world is dramatically better now than it was 100 years ago. But there's a lot of challenges that come with electronics manufacturing, with mining, with production, all the way through. So in my variant of techno-utopianism is to say, how can we have an electronics industry? How can we have all the fun gizmos that we like and still leave a planet for our kids and still have a sustainable future? And so I think what that means is that we need to have a little bit more respect for the products that we have. And if we're going to manufacture something and go to all of the effort of manufacturing it, we should take care of it for a long time. It takes around 500 pounds of raw material to make a cell phone. So we think of it, and it's just this little thing, and you can toss it in your drawer and not worry about it. And that's where most cell phones end up at the end of their lives, or at least midway through their lives. And I think that belies the respect that we should have for products. So that's what we do at iFixit, is we're out there teaching people to repair things, and people have responded. We've helped in the last year over 100 million people learn how to fix their things. But what we realized very early on was that in order for it to be easy for people to fix things, they had to know how. And there just isn't really any information out there training people on how to repair things. Sometimes manufacturers write repair manuals, and they're written for extreme techies, and they have very opaque, hard to follow instructions, and they talk about removing things like ZIF connectors, which is an acronym. Do you know what ZIF stands for? ZIF.
Zap the information file.
Zero insertion force. Right, but you get all this technobabble, these terms, and people don't know how these things go together. But the repair can actually be very straightforward and simple. So we used to get everything repaired, and now the default is that people fix almost nothing. And I think that if we're going to go to a circular economy, we have to go back to a world where more people are fixing things. We have models around the world. If you go to Africa, if you go to India, they already have a circular economy. They don't throw anything away. I went to a scrapyard in Nairobi, and I asked them, like, how much of the scrap that comes into the shop is actually going to get melted down? And he said it's about 20% of the scrap that ends up at the scrapyard that gets melted down. Everything else gets taken and reused and repurposed. They're not melting it down. So that's amazing. How do we get a world where we can inspire that kind of creativity? And in order to do it, we have to have more information. So iFixit is all about creating an open source set of information, kind of an operating system for the world of repairs, so that we have that, so that we have the information that we need to do repairs. Unfortunately, a lot of manufacturers have had the perspective that they just don't want that information to get out there. So Apple and Toshiba have sent legal threats to anyone that shares their service manual online. And we're at a really interesting place right now where the connection, we want to fix this material problem in the world where we have all of these gizmos. We don't know, we want to make them last longer. The way that we make them last longer is actually by getting information out there. So it's a digital solution to an analog mechanical problem. So in the U.S., what this has culminated in is this right to repair movement where 13 states so far this year have introduced right to repair legislation that would require manufacturers to share repair parts and service information with independent repair shops and consumers. And this is modeled on the automotive world. And I think the auto repair world is really interesting because it effectively is a circular economy. There are not very many circular holes in the circular system that is cars. Most cars last for 20 plus years. They generally don't have a single owner during their lifespan. They have 3 or 4 owners. Sure. I've never heard of anyone throwing away a 3-year-old car because they broke the windshield. It's never happened, right? But we do that with cell phones. So this is nice. We have a model, right? I mean, if you think about what the smallest town in the countryside, what are the shops there? You've got a gas station, you have a grocery store, and you have a car repair shop. And that's the kernel of civilization. So this is really interesting. We've been repairing things as long as we've been using them. And it's working for cars, but there's an invisible policy layer that underlies the auto repair world that I don't think all of us know about, which is that for decades we have been passing auto right to repair laws. The first ones were passed in the 70s in Europe and the US. And they require that the auto manufacturers share repair information on parts with the local mechanics. And if that didn't happen, if you didn't have those laws, you absolutely would not have local independent mechanics being able to repair the very complex modern vehicles that we have today. If you're running a local mechanic shop and I come in with my 2007 Ford Explorer and you've never worked on that car before, you're still going to be able to do it because you have access to Ford's schematics and you can look up the wiring diagram and you can take your knowledge of the industry and you can apply it to that specific vehicle. Increasingly modern products, I mean, this is an example. There's no product in the world that is designed like this. There's no product that has the same circuit diagram, the same layout. Like, if you're going to repair this product, you need specific information about this. Knowing how to repair VR headsets does not help you. You have to know how to fix that product. And that's the case with auto repair. That's the case with just about everything out there in the world now. You have to have product-specific information. And usually the manufacturers are the only ones that have that. So auto right to repair has leveled the playing field by making that information available to everyone, and that's now what right to repair legislation is talking about. There are other approaches to encouraging repair. There's Sweden has reduced VAT. There's some other very clever, interesting approaches to in Europe to fixing the WEEE directive to add reuse targets. But I think that the single biggest lever is information. It's getting that knowledge out there. You're going to manufacture a product. No one in the world can control where products go throughout their lives. You manufacture it, you make 1 million, you sell them. They're going to get scattered. They're going to end up all over the world. They're going to end up in the tundra in Canada. They're going to end up in the slums in Nairobi in 5 years. Like, they're going to be all over the world. And so in order to get information to follow the product, you can't embed the repair manual inside the device. So you have to put it online. You have to put it on the internet. And unfortunately, I think the electronics industry is the one that's pulling the world forward in this way. And there's this built-in secrecy in the electronics industry because they're all competing with each other. And so that kind of competitive need to invent the new thing and make sure that nobody knows how you did it is leading us accidentally down a path where consumers also don't know how they did it, and repair shops don't have the information. And so we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater by limiting repair because we're afraid of all of these IP challenges around designing and selling new products. So that's right to repair in a nutshell, is figuring out a way that we can get the information and the capability to follow the products around the world so that we can make them last longer than the shortest lived component inside the device.
Thank you, Kyle. And of course, you are the founder of iFixit.com, and the, I think, worldwide most appreciated website on people desperate for repair information. Now, I'll switch to Nazel and Bettina. What does it need to empower the consumer to repair goods? And is it information? Is it tools? Is it service, access to services? Tell me.
So I think we all know from our own behavior that we often say we want to do certain things. We go somewhere with good intentions, but then there are so many factors that play in. I mean, time mostly is a really restricting factor. We might want to invest time into repairing things, but if it's not easy and not obvious, we might end up just buying a new product because we find it too tedious to actually go through the repair, for instance. So I think it's key that we make it as easy as possible for consumers to take good care of their products and to repair them. And in order to do so, consumers really require reliable information on how to do so. They also require a good infrastructure. Policies and a lot of the things that Karl has just referred to can be a really good driver. For instance, there can be incentives such as access to service manuals, but we can also help with extending product warranties or introducing product lifetime labeling so that consumers already know how long a product should last. So they might take better care of their products because they know it is supposed to last X number of years. Of course, business and also advertising has a key role to play in order to inform consumers how should you take care of your product, and it is repairable. How can you do that? But also through design. For designing modular products, for instance, then it becomes easier to repair them. NGOs initiatives such as iFixit are key because they provide the space. They again help consumers. And I think it's also important that we look into behavioral sciences, so we can learn a lot by concepts like nudging, by concepts such as emotional durability. So how do we get consumers to have emotional connection to the product, which again helps for them to better take care of it and to keep it in use for longer. And finally, I just want to make the point that, and that's also something Karl just referred to, in a lot of countries in the world, it's already common practice that people do repair their products and they take good care, they reuse their products, they go through multiple generations. But what we should also consider is that repair has to be safe, so there might be some safety and health issues that have to be considered, especially if people start repairing products themselves. So there's also a lot to be done in that space.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bettina?
I certainly agree with Bettina about the factors influencing the user's behavior. I think if we want to encourage people to repair their products more, we need to understand these complex factors affecting their behavior. What are the motivations? What the barriers are? And we live in a society where replacement is the norm, and we throw away everything less than perfect. So with these questions in my mind, I researched different repair methods in my, and then I also looked at new technologies like 3D printing and tested these repair methods with users to find out the ways to encourage them to repair their products more. And the results were these repair kits I developed. The aim here is not to disguise the damage, but to make something artful out of it. And the focus is to boost the motivations, such as personal pleasure, improving a product's design or function, and also overcoming the barriers such as low skills level, stigma attached to repair is a very common barrier, and for example accessibility of materials. First kit is the Kintsugi repair kit. It's inspired from Japanese repair art of fixing products with gold, real gold, and here I provide all the materials with like gold powder and with instructions, which makes this process easier for them and makes these materials accessible. And the textile patches is then another kit, and it is designed especially for pragmatic reasons. A lot of people came to my workshops with damaged backpacks, back straps. This is for leather goods, bags, and shoes especially. I have another example here which we repaired with these patches, like these parts. And I also used, as I said, 3D printing. This is a flexible, small patch for textiles. It could be a watch strap. I use 3D printing because it takes people's attention. They focus on the fun and cool aspect of repair rather than thinking about the barriers like their skills level. They just want to engage with the product and use the 3D printed patches and see the results. And last one is plaster patches, inspired from putting plasters on and the ease of applying them. The main point here is quickly and easily repairing things like holes in our garments, in socks, small holes in socks. You can just put these patches on and iron them, like you're good to go in 50 minutes. And my aim here is to make these methods and materials available and accessible to users.
But how can people buy these, Nazlı?
I hope someone will produce them.
They are not on the internet yet. You
no,
cannot, okay.
I'm a researcher and designer. I need someone to produce it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Thank
Nazlı
you.
and Bettina. I'm now joined by Jamie and Annemarie. James and Annemarie. Let's have a look. Let's discuss why do we preserve some products and discard others? How can we use these insights for the design of products that last longer and motivate people to repair? I have a watch that's 55 years old and first time had to be repaired last year. So durable products of high quality also become teddy bears. You have a personal relationship. What is your opinion?
That's a great example, actually. A few years ago, we conducted a few studies looking exactly at those types of objects that developed like a really strong significance. We were looking at product attachment, emotional durability, and these sorts of things. There's a few kind of key themes or qualities that actually emerged through that process of talking to people about those super sentimental objects like that watch. One of them was material engagement, so they tended to invite kind of sensorial engagement with the material qualities. Second theme was histories of use, so things like patina. A third one was augmentation through practices like personalization or repair. And then a fourth was perceived durability. So the fact that you know that that watch might continue working means that it could kind of potentially be an heirloom more so, even if you don't actually use it as a watch, just because you know that it might kind of work into the future. And so what we did is these kind of suggest a framework for starting to think about how we might kind of embed some of these qualities into products in the future. But I also want to point out that one of the limitations of this work is that, we were looking at very super kind of special and significant products like that watch. And so in no small way, so a lot of the significance seems to come, from the contrast with kind of a background of just sort of disposable junk. And so it's kind of a real limitation to think about, especially in societies of like abundance and consumption, where there's this tendency to kind of aestheticize or fetishize even this kind of exoticization of like, scarcity and so on. It just suggests some kind of real limitations when we start to think about how we might design every product to be special and significant in those ways.
Yes.
Annemarie?
To add to that, like one of the reasons why people value their products and keep their products is also because memories are associated with these objects. So maybe that's also the case with your watch.
Definitely.
If you have had it for such a long time. So I investigated this and I looked at what kind of memories objects queue, and actually there is a huge variety of memories that can queue, or of actually what objects can queue. So some objects don't queue any memories at all, and other objects are valued, and you have very vivid memories. Very vivid memories come to mind. So there's a huge variation, and so positive memories. If positive memories are associated with the object, there's a big chance that people want to keep the object. However, if the memory is not so positive, if it's referring to something negative, if it's referring to an ex-partner, for example, you might not like to keep it.
I call these objects teddy bears, because a teddy bear doesn't have to be new or fashionable, but it's this personal relationship that creates the link and makes you invest money to have it repaired.
Does your watch also have traces of use? Like, do you have any traces of aging or use on the watch?
No, and I never changed the battery because it's auto-winding, self-winding. So it's basically just running.
So it's like new.
And it's, yes.
Yeah.
But what are typical objects where people develop relationships? Clothes, cars, writing equipment, houses. I don't think white goods, people will not get really affected to their fridges, or what about computers? iPhones, smartphones, can you get attached to your smartphone, or when the new one comes up, then you feel obliged almost to, especially young people below 10 years of age, they cannot afford, they are dead socially if they don't buy the new smartphone. So is there also a question of age, that age makes you more reasonable?
Well, I will say we were definitely in those studies I referred to earlier, we were definitely on the lookout for especially digital and electric products, that continue to have emotional durability and longevity. There's very few examples. It is kind of interesting to speculate, though, about the future and kind of imagine the vintage iPhone and the vintage kind of thing of the future. Again, these kind of heirlooms of digital technology in the future. But again, I think it's going to be a situation most likely where they're very special kind of like niche adornments to basically a sea of we'll see, but probably disposable goods. So.
Well, I think electronic goods could, like bakelite goods in the old days, simply be thrown away because you can no longer repair it, or find spare parts, or find somebody who knows. If you haven't got access to Kyle and I'll fix it. How do you actually repair it? So, James and Anne-Marie, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And we now return to Kyle, and Deepali has joined us. Welcome back, and welcome Deepali. The interesting thing is, we know that repair is much more a necessity in countries like India, because if you have scarcity and poverty, you automatically switch to the circular economy. You have no alternative. However, in the industrialized countries, we are in a situation of abundance. And in a society of abundance, you need a motivation not to consume, or a motivation to repair. So what are the lessons the industrialized countries can learn from India or Indonesia, where the knowledge to repair is in every village?
Well, that's really true. Actually, you find repair shops in India right around the country, on street corners and little shacks. In Delhi, there are like whole marketplaces which specialize in repair. And what Kyle mentioned about the information on knowing what to repair, how to repair. This is like available in their heads. They know it from experience, from learning on the job, more or less. And very counterintuitively, it is done by people who have very little formal education. So I think this could be something that might be, also something for, Western societies, where you don't really need an engineering degree to become a repairman. You could do it with very simple basic education, or maybe even no education at all, and have, a fairly good chance of making a very good living, have a livelihood. And the other thing that strikes me as counterintuitive when I speak to these guys is that I asked them, recently I had a phone repaired, and I said, okay, this is a 5C. Now how will you repair the 10, which is going to come, in a couple of weeks' time? And he said, oh, no, actually, it's all the same. Whether it's a Samsung or an iPhone, the internal mechanics, the internal design is different, but the fundamental components are the same. So as long as they know how it functions, or, what are the kind of connections and how to find those parts and where to find those parts, which often come from other phones, so they scavenge everything, they know what to repair, and they don't really, need to be retrained, and they find their way around it. And in India, we have a very interesting word for it called jugaad. And I talk a little bit about it in my presentation later today at the Plate conference. But there's a book even called Jugaad Innovation, which really looks at how you can do frugal innovation, taking adversity and making it an opportunity to repair, to reuse, to refurbish products and increase product longevity.
I think one problem in industrialized countries is that you are not allowed to innovate on existing products. So, for example, if you have a car with an electronic part that no longer works, you cannot simply rip out the electronic parts that you probably need anyway. You don't need it. But the car has to be, if it's supposed to pass the MOT test, has to be to original specifications. Whereas in the so-called third world, you're actually much more advanced, that what counts is the function, it has to work safely, and that's it. Kyle, what was your experience?
Well, in America, we don't have the same level of restrictions, so we're actively still modifying cars, and that's a big part of American culture. I had a friend came by, and he had a BMW, and he'd removed the engine, and he'd replaced it with lithium batteries that had been come out of laptops, and he made a new battery, and he got went over 750 kilometers on one charge in this car. So it can be done, and this kind of tinkering is really interesting. I think that as we moved, over the last 30 years, we've moved toward a knowledge-based society where we assume you have to go to college, you have to get a graduate degree to have a meaningful contribution to the society. And I remember I spent a lot of time with repair shops in Delhi, and they have a very strong apprenticeship culture. You're going to go and you're going to apprentice and you'll learn. And that passing those kind of manual skills on is important. I don't think that we're going to have the degree of automation around repair anytime soon that we're seeing in manufacturing. It's going to be a very manual process. It's an opportunity to increase employment across the board, but we have to build up and train people in those manual skills.
Yes, definitely. The repair is always local and skill intensive, and a robot, it would be difficult to teach a robot to not only recognize a product in detail, but then to dismantle it and then judge on each part what needs to be repaired, or exchanged, what can be reused. It's much simpler to use people because they have their intelligence.
Well, it requires creativity and innovation. And
now, I think there are some questions from the audience. Let's have a look. Does leasing or sharing change people's attitude towards repair and caring? Does leasing or sharing change people's attitude towards repair and care? It certainly, if I may pick up this question first, it certainly changes the attitude towards repairing, because you normally treat an object you own better than unfortunately somebody else's object. But what about repairing? I suppose leased or shared objects normally are repaired by the owner, which is not the user. You are the user.
Right.
So
I think there's trade-offs there where you're centralizing repair a little bit more. So I think about a machine tool rental company where you can go and rent, tools that you might not normally have. They have mechanics so that you're centralizing. You definitely have more repair happening. You have an increased, what I would say, a duty cycle on products. So where most home products, you're not going to, like if you have a sandwich press at home, you might use it once a week. If you have a sandwich press in a restaurant, it might get used 50 times a day. There's a different level of use, and that's going to take us in the direction of more durable products. I think more repair will have to happen overall. So the hope is that you have fewer objects that are more intensively used and more intensively maintained.
Thank you very much, Kyle and Dipali. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but it's been very interesting, and I hope the audience will have learned a lot of things about how to promote, how to dare to repair, and the right to repair. Thank you very much.
Thank you.